Winnie, I come from Kenya, and that part of the world where numbers are growing. We've got lots of people. But let's see what that means for elephants. So I'm going to confine myself to the elephant issue, because that's the one I know a lot about. I don't know enough about this population thing. And I'm not even guilty. I'm a mother of two. Right. Okay. So the Elephant Protection Initiative, essentially, it is a high-level initiative. The idea of the Elephant Protection Initiative came up after looking at what was going on with elephants and realizing that illegal poaching, illegal wildlife trafficking was reaching levels where, unless we had the conversation escalating to the very highest level of political will, we were never going to be able to solve this problem. So at the Illegal Wildlife Trade Conference in 2014, Prince William and the UK government graciously brought together African presidents to sign up to an initiative where they were going to start really looking at this elephant protection issue. And that photograph there, I don't know if we should do a quick quiz and people tell me who are in that photograph. No, I will not. But essentially, that's President Bongo of Gabon. There is the former president of Botswana, Ian Khama, former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, the president of Chad, Idris Deby, and Ethiopia was represented by the foreign minister. And why this is important is because I think that this is something that the population movement needs to get into, that some of these issues are so urgent and so important that they need to be spoken at very, very high level. And this is what, this meeting was convened in 2014, and these people signed up to 4 declarations. First, that they were going to support a moratorium on ivory trade, and they were going to support closure of domestic ivory markets, and they were also going to think about putting ivory beyond economic use, but most importantly, that they were going to put their weight behind the African Elephant Action Plan by producing in their countries and inviting more African countries to plan for elephants at national level. Now, let's see where we've got to with this. Oh, I like the photo at the top there, because when I put it out in a country like this, people go, ooh, yes. That was my moment of fame right there. I had been given quite a lot of lectures about how to sit with the royals, but none of that worked. I forgot. But I didn't do too badly. So this was the Illegal Wildlife Trade Conference last year. And we basically, this session was a side event during the conference. The consultative group of the Elephant Protection Initiative, attended again by, down here you can see President Bongo was chairing the session. The current president of Botswana, President Masisi. We had First Ladies of Kenya and Sierra Leone in the meeting. We had His Royal Highness Prince William attending the session, just looking at what the successes had been. And indeed, we had recorded some successes in those 4 years, because as you all know, some significant domestic ivory markets have closed, China included. Who would have thought that China would close its domestic ivory market, because everybody thought there was this insatiable appetite for ivory in China. And China was one of the countries that quickly really answered to the call through a lot of interventions, including personal interventions by Prince William, actually decided to close their domestic ivory market. The UK, you can give yourselves a hand, has actually gone the way that China has gone, and it's closing, has actually declared it's going to close its domestic ivory market. This may look like small gains, but it's absolutely significant, because when the buying stops, the killing stops too. There's no point of having ivory if you cannot sell it. So this meeting was really a moment where we looked at the successes and then realized that there was one area that we still needed to do more. That is planning for elephants, looking at the real issues that are impacting elephant populations going forward. So that's just a quick map. We have 19 countries now signed up to the Elephant Protection Initiative. And I'm happy to say that Nigeria was the last one to sign up. I know you're asking yourselves whether there are elephants in Nigeria. Yes, there are. There are not very many. I think there are less than 100, but they're there. Yes, there are elephants in Nigeria. But let's just have a quick look at where elephants are found. I don't like the colors of this map, please forgive me, but let's just see if it can help us. So this is Botswana. Botswana is one of our founder members. 130,000 elephants are estimated to be in this country. That's Tanzania. Tanzania has a decent elephant population, about 50,000 elephants. Unfortunately, has recorded a significant decline in the last 10 years, but they still have a decent elephant population, indeed viable elephant population. That's Kenya. Kenya has an elephant population, according to the African Elephant Database, of 22,000, but the last census, they counted 30,000 elephants, give and take 2,000. So a decent population of elephants there. Now, if you really think about, then we have Ethiopia. That's one of our members. I think I'm pointing at the right one, right? Yes. Lots of people, not very many elephants. If you come down to, look at Angola, Gabon, Congo, they have some elephants, not too many. West Africa. West Africa is a challenge. Low, fragmented elephant populations. And the question in our minds is whether there is really a clear relationship between what we are seeing with the EPI countries and population densities. And the truth is, it's really when I was preparing for this conference that I really thought about this. We talk about all sorts of problems, human-wildlife conflict, loss of wildlife range, but we've never really had a conference about human populations and what it means for elephants. This is just putting all these populations in a map. And you can see from Botswana going towards West Africa, it's really very little in terms of elephant populations. And if we think that ivory, for a long time, the people in the elephant world have basically seen the ivory trade as the main culprit. It is absolutely the reason why elephant populations in Africa have gone down from 1.3 million estimated in 1979. This was the first time we had a Pan-African elephant survey. That's when we first counted elephants. So all other numbers you have after that are really guesstimates. So from 1.3 million elephants down to 400,000, that's what we think we have now. We basically recorded a loss of 20,000 elephants a year. In 40 years, 20,000 elephants a year. And most of this, I would say 90% of this loss was down to the ivory trade. Huge amounts of ivory moving. We get to the consumption problem because the ivory was not being sold in Africa. The ivory was destined, first of all, for the early years, North America, Europe, big consumers of ivory. And then slowly, the consumption shifted to Asia. China, as the economics of the Chinese people improved, then it meant that the demand for ivory was extremely high, and that is probably the net reason why Africa lost its elephants. The ivory trade. Now, going forward, we're starting to really look at the space issue. Where are elephants actually going to stay in Africa, given the population numbers? And so let's not forget that the loss of 800,000 elephants in Africa is almost to 90% due to consumption. The fact that this ivory was being bought out of Africa. And indeed, even today, the amount of ivory that is moving out of Africa going to Asia is still significant amounts of it. So the buying continues. There is a thriving ivory trade. So on top of everything we're talking about, let's not forget the consumption issue and what it means for species. Now, I will go on. So we just looked at this. Elephant, indeed, where you have high population densities, for sure, elephant numbers are extremely low. There is a relationship between population densities, human population, and elephant numbers. This is not very clear. I won't waste too much time there, but let's look at that. So Ethiopia, we like Ethiopia. You know, Ethiopia is real Africa. If you can make a difference in Ethiopia, if you can change something in Ethiopia, you can roll that product anywhere in Africa and it will work. Why is Ethiopia real Africa? This is the place where their ideas are indigenous. They have never been colonized. This is the real deal. If you can pass a message anywhere in Africa, you start there. If you can change something in Ethiopia, you can change it anywhere. Now, there are about 1,000 elephants in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a member of the Elephant Protection Initiative, and actually one of the founder members, and very enthusiastic. They are very keen on protecting their elephants. And they do have some space, and they are starting to do the right things. They are starting to say, look, we haven't looked after our national parks very well. Elephant Protection Initiative, help us. Okay? So we see that the prognosis for Ethiopia is not that great because very many people, high human density, about 120 maybe people per square kilometer, very few elephants. We don't know whether it's possible to increase the elephant numbers, but the political will is there and it's quite high. Now, Uganda, another interesting part of real Africa. Very high human population density, close to 200 people per square kilometer. But they still have elephants. They have close to 5,000 elephants in Uganda. Now, Kenya. Kenya is another interesting country with important and very good policies around wildlife conservation because they've done very well with tourism. They invest heavily in wildlife conservation. They suffered massively during the poaching crisis, lost a lot of their elephants. But the elephant numbers have recovered from 15,000 or so elephants in 1990, and they've almost doubled that population. So they're doing a few things right. The human population is not great. The human population is increasing, but they are doing a few things right. Now, Tanzania. Tanzania has a very decent elephant population, about 50,000 elephants. The human population numbers are not great. Actually, the numbers of people are increasing significantly in Tanzania. It is expected that the population of Tanzania will certainly double by 2050. So what are the real issues to be addressed? What's the real situation in the ground? What we see now is that elephants will increasingly exist in human-dominated landscapes. The question is, what will those humans be doing? Those humans that are going to exist with these elephants, what will they be doing? We think that that column there, oops, okay. I knew that would happen. Okay. That column there, projections, number of elephants in 2050, will depend heavily on what humans are going to be doing. Which humans are we talking about? The consumers, those guys that continue to buy ivory. If they stop, then we are going to have dealt with one problem, that elephants will no longer be killed so that ivory can move to Asia, so that ivory can move to those parts of the world that have caused the decimation of elephant population, especially in the forests of Africa. If the consumers stop, that's one problem. What will these Africans be doing? Doubling their population, some of them, But in terms of consumption, are the African nations capable of raising their consumption levels to what we see in Europe, in North America? Probably not. They have nobody to colonize. So they have no resources to increase their consumption the way that, and I'm not being rude here, I'm just saying that when you have a source of wealth that is not directly where you are, you can get it from somewhere else, then you increase your economies in unnatural ways, isn't it? So you have your industries increasing unnaturally, your economies increasing unnaturally. Africa will never be able to do that. So there is hope. The levels of consumption in Africa are unlikely to increase to the levels that we see in this part of the world, but the numbers of people will increase. So let's all get together and figure out, how do we find a balance? How do we make life sustainable and livable in Africa so that species can continue to survive? The numbers will increase, but what the people will be doing is what is important. I don't know if empowering girls is the way. I'm a mother of boys. I think empowering boys is even more important. But let us appreciate that what the people of Africa will be doing is what will determine what numbers we are going to fill into that column. Thank you very much.